So the main reason this non-point source pollution, the main reason this stormwater is such a huge issue is because of us, because of our use of something called impervious surface. What impervious means, just in general, impervious means that things cannot go through that material. So an impervious surface is a material that does not allow things to go through. And what we typically mean when we talk about impervious surface is we're thinking about rainwater. So when it rains, an example of a pervious surface would be soil or grass or plants. The water comes down, but then it soaks up and it goes through that soil. An impervious surface would be it rains and then it sits on that surface. It's not going anywhere. And so that water can't go through and it can't get into the ground, so it just sits on top of that surface. Well, if it's sitting on top of that surface and it's going to gather stuff, it's going to cause a lot of issues because that water has nowhere to go. If we look at this picture, this is looking at a shopping center here in Germantown. The amount of impervious surface that covers the United States is insane. If you take a look at it, not only do we have roads, which are impervious, we also have parking lots, which are impervious. We have sidewalks that are impervious. We have roofs and tops of buildings that are impervious. So lots of different impervious surfaces, which is a huge issue, having all these impervious surfaces. And there's tons of reasons why. But this is everywhere. And there's definitely solutions, and we'll explore those solutions in a future video. But impervious surface really covers like every inch of our life. So why does it matter? Well, one, it's going to cause flooding because that water has nowhere to go. That water is literally sitting top on this pavement, just waiting. It might go down a stormwater drain, but if that stormwater drain's already backed up, it's just going to flood. And related to that is that if it does get to a stormwater drain and it does get to a water body, it's going to be moving fast, right? Because there's nothing slowing it down. There was no sand, there was no soil, there was no plants to slow down that water. It was essentially, here we have a huge hose, a huge pipe, and we're dumping water through it, and it's not slowing down. If anything, it might be speeding up, and that's going to cause issues in the environment. So let me show you both of these things. So imagine we have an inch of rain that falls in an area, and it falls here in a forested region, a 1 acre forested region. And so there's going to be runoff. Soil and plants can absorb but so much water in so much time, and it soaks in a majority of it, but let's say 1,300 gallons still runs off. So still a good amount of water is running off of this natural ecosystem. Although that sounds like a lot, let's take that same exact amount of rain, that same exact area, but let it fall in an urban area. Let it fall on buildings, let it fall on cars, let it fall on driveways and parking lots. And you take that same amount of water, the runoff is astronomical. 25,000 gallons of water versus our little over 1,000 gallons of water. Because in the impervious surface, there's nowhere to go. And so not only is that water not going into the environment, but that's going to cause flooding for us. That water's got to go somewhere. And if that stormwater drain's already backed up, that's flooding for us. That's flooding in our roads, in our buildings. Now let's say it does get to a stormwater drain, it goes through all these pipes, and it does get to reach the environment. But that water is moving so fast. The environment didn't get a chance to slow it down. And so what we see is a high water flow in our streams and in our rivers. And because that water is moving so quickly, it causes this. And if you remember this all the way in Unit 1, maybe Unit 2, this is erosion. And this can cause problems for humans. You can see like someone's backyard backs up to this river. But also causes problems for the organisms. Like this literally is a chunk of ecosystem that is no longer there anymore. And that was just from really high water flow at some point during some storm event. So you can see really huge consequences for humans and for the environment. Another impact of impervious surface is looking at surface temperature, particularly looking at summer storms. If you have ever been outside barefoot on a summer day, you usually are not outside barefoot for long, especially if you have to walk on the road for whatever reason. because that asphalt and that concrete gets very hot very fast. Because the sun's beating down on it and it's just cooking, literally cooking all day. Sometimes so hot you can cook an egg. Well, if it rains, that water hits the impervious surface. We've already said it kind of stays on the impervious surface because it has nowhere to go. And so that water is warming up. So the water that falls on it is getting really, really warm and then goes through a stormwater drain and then enters the environment as this really warm water. Now, for some ecosystems, that might be fine. But for others, certain fish species need colder water. And that if you instantly add really hot water, it might shock them and they might get shocked so badly that they die. Or they get shocked to the point they're paralyzed and they become a easy to pick off prey item. So directly affecting fish species and a lot of fish species that we catch. So even if you're like, I don't care about the fish, I can guarantee you a lot of fishermen care about those fish. So again, this is just because pavement's hot. And when it rains, that rain gets hot. And then finally, especially related back to pollution, is that when that water sits on the surface, it's going to pick up anything that was on that surface. And anything on that surface is going to run with that water. It's going to run off with that water. Things that might be on the surface are chemicals. So thinking about a parking lot, if your car is leaking antifreeze or oil or gasoline, that drips onto pavement. Well, eventually it's going to rain and that water is just going to pick it up. And in most places, that stormwater is not treated. So that antifreeze directly entering the environment. That oil directly entering that environment. But also big things like trash. When people see trash on the ground, most people don't pick it up. A lot of people add to it. They think, oh, littering's fine. But literally, we don't have any systems in place to take care of that trash. When it rains next, that trash just washes away. So I know some of you guys have been helping out with the trash cleanups that I have here at MC, and you are literally preventing this picture from happening. Because that water you see on the side of the road, or rather that trash you see on the side of the road, it's just going to go into a water body. Next time it rains hard, all that trash that you picked up is just going into a water body. So I know you might think it's disgusting. Even in your own neighborhood, you might see the trash, but maybe you aren't compelled to pick it up. Right? That was someone else's trash. I don't know where it's been. I don't know what it's touched. But if you don't pick it up and no one else picks it up, it just ends up in the water. That's it. It doesn't get cleaned by anyone. It just ends up in a pipe and ends up like this. And this is common. This isn't oh, that only happens in third world countries. No, this is happening everywhere. Baltimore Harbor is having a huge issue with trash like this. So it's not just that person's problem or that person's problem. You and I are the reason this happens because people litter. And when they litter, it goes into the environment. So a huge consequence of our impervious surface. So again, non-point source pollution is really hard to regulate. And the thing is with non-point source pollution, it's really not companies to blame. It is literally us to blame. It's human habits that are contributing to our non-point source pollution. The high amount of impervious surface we have doesn't help either. You get increased temperatures, you get high water flow, you get flooding, you get runoff. And again, that was our fault. We decided we're going to pave everything and we're going to use impervious surface to pave it. But have no fear, there are some solutions to this. This isn't all doom and gloom, but something to definitely consider just the next time you're walking around. That pollution you see was caused by your fellow man. And if you don't clean it up, it's just going to end up like this.